Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Decide to Move podcast. I'm super excited for my next guest today. She's coming to bring you information of how you can create your new normal. And this is so important with today, with everything that's happened. For those that are in denial, to those that have accepted it, things are changed for a long time. It's not going to be the way that it used to be yesterday. So now we're in a new normal phase. And I have Kim Kosteck that is going to tell you all about her journey, how she ended up creating her own new normal, and how you can do the same as well. Hi, Kim. How are you doing today?
Fabulous. Fabulous. I am so excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you with me today.
Thank you. So, it's interesting, the new normal, that is something that is a phrase that I keep hearing a lot of, and it's one that I've been working with people on for a long time. When life comes in and it changes things up completely, it's a new normal that you have to adjust. And, a little bit about myself. I am a professional organizer and certified coach, and I work with people to make sense of the mess in their life. Like sometimes it just comes in and punches you in the gut. About 7 years ago was when I got a phone call from my daughter's doctor telling us that our lives were going to change for forever. She got a diagnosis that I couldn't pronounce, and I could barely understand him when he was telling us, because he had this really thick Turkish accent. And I was like, can you spell it? Like one letter at a time. And nobody had even really heard it. But what I did know is the basis of it is I needed to go home and take out everything that was in my pantry and start from scratch and learn how to cook. That I didn't know anything about. But it really was like our lives, all I wanted was yesterday back. All I wanted was, 5 minutes before that phone call. And things were never going to be the same. And it hurt. I mean, it literally physically felt like somebody had punched me in my gut. And what I've noticed through my daughter's journey and my journey and all of us, as a family, is that this happens to people all the time, but they don't pick themselves up. They just kind of stay there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's interesting because one of the things that I talk about with people are the stages of grief. That they're mourning a loss. It might as well have been like a death, and it was like a death to the life that they knew before. And it's hard, and there is denial. There bargaining. As God knows, I bargained. Like is there something else that we can do? But what I've really, it's not that we don't have the tools to do it, but I've noticed that people don't just dig inside to see what they already have to adjust. They become so overwhelmed. That's something that happens with everybody, is they become so overwhelmed and exhausted, they don't know where to start. And it's needing a direction, and I love what I do. I hate that people are struggling. And in this today of the coronavirus, we will never be like what we were before, middle of March, that's when things like really started going on lockdown all over the country. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that, there are some things that we kind of needed to pull away from anyways. And this normal, it's scary. Change is scary. I had no idea what I was going to do when all I knew is I was going home and throwing everything away. Actually, I didn't throw everything away, because when I realized how much there was, I felt incredibly guilty to throw that much food away. But we kept like 5 items in our entire pantry, and I just went grocery shopping. It was great.
Well, can you tell the audience exactly like what was it, and then why did you have to make this huge change? What was it that became your new normal?
So my daughter has, and this was, like I said, our first biggest thing, but my daughter has a disease called eosinophilic esophagitis. And essentially what it is eosinophils are a type of white blood cells that typically attack parasites. And so her body sees food as a parasite. So as you swallow, it passes your esophagus and it goes into your stomach. It sends off these alarms. And but by the time that the eosinophils get to the esophagus to fight whatever, the army was called to do, the food's already gone and it made it into the stomach. And so they hang around for a little bit waiting for, all right, we got called for a reason, what's going on? And food comes by, but again, by the time it does that, the eosinophils have nothing really to attack. So they start attacking the esophagus. So my daughter, at this time, she was already dairy-free because we had a confirmed dairy allergy when she was 15 months old. She was about 7 years old, and she had been experiencing severe pain. It was a lot of persistence, and a lot of, I'm pretty sure they thought that I had Munchausen by proxy because, they're like, there's nothing wrong with her. Like, it's reflux. And we're like, no, this isn't reflux. She had to have an endoscopy done. And that's the only way that they can measure if she is in active or in remission is they have to take biopsies throughout her esophagus. And if the eosinophils are present, then there's foods that are in her diet. So the first thing, that first phone call that I got, we had to eliminate wheat, soy, and egg in addition to dairy. We did that. We did another endoscopy. She still wasn't clean. So we had to eliminate more foods. At the height of her elimination, we were wheat, soy, dairy, egg, tree nut, peanut, poultry, red and blue dye, natural artificial flavoring, corn, rice, and potato free. And we still knew how to bake a cake. Because, she's a kid, and I see a lot of people that go through this particular disease because I do moderate and help run a Facebook group, that's for parents with this. And they're struggling. They're like, well, I don't know what to do. We're just not going to have anything. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. No, like, no is an easy answer. I can't is an easy answer. I couldn't cook. Like, I'm not even kidding. I had maybe 5 things that I knew how to cook, and all of them she was allergic to. We had to like literally go back to the drawing board. I had, at that time, I have 4 children now, but I had 3 at that time, and girls, and I had managed to raise 3 girls not cooking. It was awesome. Sign in my kitchen saying, "Welcome to Kim's Kitchen, frozen dinner served here." Like, that was legit. But the reason why I really put so much emphasis on that is I truly was the extreme. And when I got the call from the doctor, I started laughing. He questioned my mental sanity. He was, "Are you okay? Like, do you need a doctor?" I said, "Not, God's got jokes. Like, of all people, this is the funniest thing that you could," because it's just, what do I do? But you figure it out. There were other things I wish that they would have told me my daughter had. And I know that it sounds terrible, but they would have at least had an end date. This is chronic. This is forever. Currently, at this time, she is 13, and she is awesome, and you would never know. It's been a, hard last 6, almost 7 years, but she has a gastronomy tube, like a feeding tube in her stomach that we occasionally have to fall back onto. But she's just as happy as any other kid out there. And you have to think this is going to change us, 3 to 5 meals a day, 365 days a week. There was no getting out of it. But it's about the resilience. I like to think when I look at my children now, my girls that are teenagers, they're problem solvers. And I probably through this, it's been a blessing more than it could have ever been a curse. And that's really what I do. Like when what I love working with people on is seeing your new normal and embracing it. And loving it. And, cause it is what it is. Like you can either be happy and it is what it is, or you can be miserable and it is what it is. Happy feels better.
Exactly. And it actually takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. And that's one thing that people don't understand. They're like, why are you always smiling? Like, because I'm lazy. Right? I'm lazy. I don't feel like, and like I've actually had somebody say, hey, do we have, issues or whatever? And I was like, I do not even have the emotional energy to have a problem with you today. Like literally, it's like life is just so much easier to just go by being happy. And one of the biggest things, like you said a lot as far as like what you experience is 365 days a year, sometimes 366, like this year's 366, right? And, with everything happening right now with the pandemic, this is, no matter when this is recording is aired, it's going, your normal has changed. It's shifted. You organize closets. The way that a person used to keep their closet, something so subtle is a new normal, right? And that's one thing that people don't understand, that you can use change as an opportunity for growth, transition, development, starting a business, like literally finding your purpose and doing it with meaning. And that sounds like exactly what you guys end up doing. Like you say, you don't cook, but you worked it out.
I mean, we figured it out. And again, like I take somebody back to, if you could really think 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So gluten-free wasn't really a thing then. Okay. It's a thing now. I get you. Okay. And it's everywhere. And they have all kinds of resources. The only thing that we could find in a grocery store that was an alternative milk locally within 20 miles was soy milk. And that's what she drank, since she was little, because she couldn't have regular milk. When that changed, Whole Foods, 25 miles away from where we live, that was what we had to do in order to be able to get it. When we took away soy, we went to almond milk and we had to go for there. Well, then when we took away tree nuts, like, okay, oat milk, flax milk. She actually loves flax milk, which is apparently awesome for you. I don't know, not my thing. We always called it her special milk. Okay. Like that. I mean, I'll cook mashed potatoes with it, and finding, I mean, we've found some really interesting alternatives, frog legs and dumplings instead of chicken and dumplings. She thought it was yummy, but and it's just like you can find in anything an opportunity, anything. And this is when you're stuck at home, you have an opportunity to do some soul searching or figure out, I work, like you talk about organizing closets, I'd say 85% of my clients have been in crisis because they're used to going to work and the mess at home doesn't bother them as much. And now they can't leave. And it's like, I need some help. Like, this didn't bother me before, but now it's, we're hurting. And I just kind of smile and nod and say, all right, we'll figure it out. But I mean, it truly is, though, an opportunity. I tell other businesses, everything that you didn't have time to do before, do it now. Because the normal is going to shift again. When this pandemic has lifted, it's going to come at you quickly. So, I mean, that's my daughter. Since then, I can say that, we've gotten I've had a 2-year-old son, I have a 2.5-year-old son that has a rare genetic condition. Weirdest thing ever. He was the 35th medically documented case in the world. And doctors are sitting there with their heads spinning and they're telling us all this stuff. And I'm like, It is what it is. Like, where's the list? I mean, let's just check it off, because when you finally do realize and that you have the tools inside, and you truly hone in and you understand, the stages of grief that are going to happen. When I get a bad call, I can talk to a friend, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Not right now, I'm not, but it will be tomorrow. Let me have my moment. Let me grieve that loss, and then we got to pick it up and we got to keep going." But that's just with any bad news. People say, "You take bad news really well." I didn't always. you know but it's my great grandmother said, life is nothing but a bunch of problems. Once you fix one, another one is bound to come along. That could sound really sad, but I find that statement empowering. I have the opportunity to know that, first of all, it's gonna get better, or you can just kind of be sad in it. But if you're sad in it, then another problem's still gonna come along, and now you're like layering the sadness.
Yeah. So for those people that need like a step-by-step strategy, because of the fact that, some people like, I'm over here, I'm over there, but they need a step. What is the first step you feel that people have to take or should take in order to embrace their new normal and to help do it in a healthy way?
So it goes back to the stages of grief. Absolutely. They do need to understand that it is a process, that you need to mourn the loss of what is not there so you can accept it. So you can get through to that acceptance phase. And then once you accept it, the biggest, with working people, is keeping them in a state of mindfulness and using their wise mind. Okay, so you can't be all this emotional, but you also can't shut off how you're feeling. You need to recognize both, reasoning and your emotions, and when there comes to a state of crisis and situation, that it's okay to feel both. Like I am all about being dialectical. Just because you're sad, it doesn't mean you can't be happy too, or they both can coexist. And that's truly, in a sense, you can be angry that this happened, and you can still want to do better. You don't have to choose. But that's really it. Like, truly recognizing that this is a grief process. It's like a death. Your old life, what you knew before, it's gone. It's gone. We can't live in that. We just need to accept it and know that there's going to be ups and downs and denial and whatever, because you can, like, I like to think of the stages of grief, instead of it being like a circle or this, it's like, you can go over here and then you can go down here and then you're all over the place. But once you truly accept that it's gone and we can move on, then, you can move past your limiting beliefs, and you can gain more perspective of, and gratitude for what you do have and your new life, and start to love it. To love. I don't want 5 years to go back, I've had more opportunity, and that's it. Is this truly is an opportunity? I've had more opportunity since this has happened, since my daughter's diagnosis, than I could have ever imagined. We have so much support, so many people that have followed her journey. She came to me one day and said, "Mom, I want to eat lunch at school." My jaw dropped. Like, no, they're going to kill you. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I got some control issues. It's not gonna happen. And what came out of my mouth was, okay. And so I was able to take some relationships that I had with the school district, and we could go. Our school district is just shy of 24,000 kids. And we said, we got a problem in the food allergy department and we need to fix it. And they did. And they listened, and we worked together with a dietitian. And now we have a top 8, safe food menu, like allergy-free menu. My kid that's top 8 and plus, there's a dietitian. We hired one dietitian then, and this past year we pulled on our same an additional dietitian, and from there, there's 2 now, and they make custom menus for kids that need this, so they can have the same opportunity as every other kid. So I look at my daughter that's 13 years old, and when she was like 8, she changed the lives potentially of thousands of children. That wouldn't have happened if this, or at least it wouldn't have happened when it did and how it did. So it's been an opportunity. It's been a blessing, and to be able to have this that we would have never been able to have. So.
And that's great. And one thing for people to also, when they're in that stage of understanding of going through grief, understand that you can be in 2 stages at the same time. Just like Kim was saying, like, instead of it being circular, you may be like, for those that have lost family members during this pandemic, you may end up grieving the loss of your family member, and at the same time grieving the loss of your job, and then grieving the loss of your life in the way. And so some things you bounce back easier than others, and that's where it's going to be super huge and important to recognize where you are in each area, and then be kind to yourself. That's like the one thing I always tell people: be kind to yourself. We always feel like we have to do this should be, and I would say should is, you should on yourself. Correct? Because it doesn't do anything. Whose life are you living, yours or someone else's? So, yeah.
No, absolutely. And we need to be kind to ourselves. We absolutely need to be kind to ourselves. Failure is an event, not a person. Period. Zig Ziglar said that, and it's true. Failure is things that happen, and it might not even be a failure, but you might, if you lose your job, you might feel like, well, why did I get cut and nobody else? And it's just a phase in your life, but it does not define who you are. It's something that comes up. Now, how you react to it is completely different, but you have control over that. You have no control over the circumstances, but you do have control over your reactions. And recognize how you feel. I am angry. I am hurt. I'm terrified. And once you start really digging in deep and becoming very mindful of what you are feeling and what you're experiencing, then you can say, okay, well, and you probably know this, in your thing, but if you actually say it out loud and it comes back through your ears, when you hear it, it takes on a whole new life form, and sometimes you might feel even sillier, repeating things back to yourself. I'm angry. I'm like, well, why am I angry? Well, and you have these conversations that become incredibly dialectical with yourself, and that can get you moving forward into the right direction and truly recognizing where you are, or you'll stay stuck. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to say, I can't deal with this today, and giving yourself some boundaries. Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
And I absolutely love that, because one of my favorite phrases to tell people, I do not have the emotional capacity to deal with that right now. I mean, like, that's me being true to, well, like, if someone's coming to me for something that I know that's going to take a lot of energy and I'm tapped out, I'm exhausted.
Yes.
It would be a disservice for me as well as them to attempt to filter through something or work through something that is not, like, I literally don't even have the energy for it. Give me a fresh mind, give me a fresh start, and I will knock it out in a day. But that's where one of the things is, it's okay to say, I don't have the emotional capacity. We don't have control of what's happening around us, but you do have control of yourself and the way that you respond to things. So just like you were saying, and I think it's super important. And I also love the bridge of saying, and I always like teach people, you can, like, somebody says, I love you, but no, I love you and I'm upset, right? You can love a person but still be upset. One doesn't devalue or invalidate the other. And unfortunately, so many times people have learned to speak that way, where a person's like, oh, so you don't love me? I do love you. But, and so the word but just takes everything you said before it and just totally, like, you might as well not even have said it. So I love the because I teach DBT, so I'm familiar with what you were saying with the wise mind, right?
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Having the emotional piece and not being so in your head and logical that you totally like look at a person who's emotional and be like, you don't have a reason to be upset. That was stupid. Kind of, blending it together so you can make a better decision. So yeah, absolutely.
Self-validation, and it really is. You can't expect the world to validate you. They might not understand, what's going on. I had people tell me more so than anything else, and even though they don't necessarily mean to be invalidating, but it's actually kind of the opposite. It's hilarious, and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe that you're handling this so well. You're about to snap," and I'm thinking, okay, well, that was kind of a backhanded compliment there for a second, but more than that, like, yeah, I am okay. I am hurt. I've got to rethink some stuff. I'm a little angry. I fired one of my kids' doctors today. You have to, and it wasn't an emotional decision. I had to okay, I originally came up with the decision when I was emotional, but then I had to think about it, and then, and making it was the right decision. But you can't be all the way on one end of the spectrum and all the way on the other end of the spectrum. But sometimes you doing well is uncomfortable for other people, and you need to be aware of that, that they're kind of expecting it. I had somebody tell me, well, and my thing is not allowing myself a choice, and I would say, well, what other option was there? And they say, oh, there's plenty of options. And in this conversation I was having, they said, do you know how many kids there are in child services, social services that have special needs? And I was like, that wasn't an option. She says, no, it's an option. Oh, no, it's not. Like, that's my kid. That's not an option. And she says, no, it's an option. Well, sometimes we need to actually, even though they are options, eliminate our options and say, you know what, narrow down and say, this is what I'm willing to tolerate and this is what I am not. This is, the choices I'm willing to make. So giving my kid to somebody else was never an option to me. Right, like, by no means. However, there's also plenty of people that would say, like, that's too hard. I can't do that. And this is what we're going to do instead. And, it was hard. But man, it paid so many more dividends in the end. Everything, that really pays the best, the harder it is, the better it'll pay in the end. The more work, the more grunt work that you put into it, it's more likely to pay off. And that's even in this situation, with coronavirus.
Yeah, most definitely. And one of the things that's huge is like I'm going to use a relationship, for example, something that I teach people when I'm working with my couples clients. But when you're dealing with like arguing and stuff like that, if divorce is not an option, why even bring it up? It's like, you don't put a card out there that you're not willing to play. And so if someone says, well, I want a divorce, now you've allowed that to become an option in your relationship. And so if it's not an option, it's something that's never discussed. These are our options. We're going to either talk about it tonight, we'll talk about it tomorrow, we'll write it down in a letter and address it. But either way, divorce does not enter in there. And that's the same thing as you were saying with choices. It's like you write down the choices that you're willing to entertain, basically. Are you willing to entertain those choices? And if not, then don't even write them down.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though, divorce would be an option, it's not. So don't entertain it. And that's just kind of the way that it is, when they gave me all the information of my son, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we're just going to have 10,000 doctor's appointments and this, that, and the other. And we take it as it comes, try not to, there's one thing to like, okay, I can't say this word and maybe you can. I struggle with it every time. And being that you work at DBT, so catastrophize.
Catastrophizing, yes.
Okay, so catastrophize. It's a struggle. It's a real struggle. So, don't catastrophize. Don't make it worse than what it is. It is still good to kind of take a look into the future and, play out okay, if I do this, then the most likely scenarios that I can think of, this, and this will happen. But don't make your here and now worse than what it is. It's not the end of the world. It's a major inconvenience. Coronavirus is a major inconvenience. It's not officially the end of the world yet, it's going to hurt our economy. It's going to hurt small business, but can we recover? Yeah. Is it going to take some hard work? And yeah, with anything, if you're dealing with illness in your family, quarantine, or self-quarantine or what have you, it's not easy. I mean, I totally get that. Teaching your kids at home, not easy, and managing a job and, what have you. But you can do it. It's, you just have to rethink the system. It's different. Come up with different systems. What worked for you yesterday is not going to work for you tomorrow or today. But in a few months, we could be back to normal, except for then it'll be summer break for all the kids. At least you don't have to teach them at home at that point.
Hopefully some kids might be like, Mom, I'm not going back to school. I like this homeschooling thing, right? As they're adjusting. So as, and as everyone who's listening and as you're going through your own journey and figuring out what your new normal is going to look like and what you're happy with, understand that there are coaches and there's even those that need further because of depression, stuff like that. There are therapists out there that you can definitely reach out to help you go through, like, basically work through your process the way you need to. Don't feel like you have to go through it by yourself. No means are we saying that, it's this way or no way. You have to find what works for you and then reach out to those that you feel that can actually help you on that journey. So.
And I'll put a plug in for what you do right there, because if you're going to seek out a therapist, by all means to find one that works through DBT. That is, it's not prevalent enough. Like you don't see enough therapists, in my opinion, that do practice DBT. But being dialectical means that two seemingly opposite things can both be true at the same time. And if you are struggling with moving past something, then I'm just gonna say I think DBT is the best way to go. So
most definitely. So as people are getting back, wanting to know more about the new normal, even work with you to help them organize their life or, get on track, how can they find you?
So you can find me on Facebook, and I have a Facebook page which is Simply Living, at facebook.com/Simply Living PO. But I really would like for people to connect with me personally on my Facebook. Like I keep it open and transparent. And if it's a coaching situation, I never disclose, how we know each other. But sometimes it can be just really uplifting to see a true person, a real person that goes through struggle and how we do it. So for that, you can just find Kim Kosteck on Facebook. And most of my stuff are just following. You can see that I keep it all public. LinkedIn, Kim Kosteck on LinkedIn, and then Instagram, Simply Living PO. It's funny. Twitter, I'm there, but I'll be honest with you, my 17-year-old takes care of it for me. I'm like, I just like reading it. Like, I'm not a tweeter. That's so, but I am completely open. And then I have a group that is called Simply Living Your New Normal. It is a private group, so you will need to kind of ask me to be a part of it because there's some very sensitive subjects that we talk in there. And there's a lot of, people that are grieving a loss of someone, medical diagnoses, or divorce, things like that. Is, really whatever it is, if you had to experience a major life event that has left you struggling and you want to love the new life that's in front of you. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Kim, for really helping us understand how we can actually go through a new normal, whether it's, having a child that's been sick, going through the pandemic, losing a job, going through divorce, just going through different things that changes the way that your life was to where it is now is considered making a pivotal shift, having to define a new normal for yourself. And so thank you. Kim has given us a lot of good nuggets of how to do that. One of those things is really just recognizing from the stages of grief, recognizing where you are, and that way you can work through the process. And there's lots of coaches, there's lots of, people that are out there. Kim is definitely one that you want to reach out to help you through your processes, especially when you want to get organized and just basically live a simple life and to find that new normal. So thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today. And I am so happy to have you on our another episode.
Thank you, Monica. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And until next time, I'm Monica M. Bijou, and I look forward to talking to you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Decide to Move podcast with Monica M. Bijou. If you are ready to make a pivotal shift and take your destined position in the world, then schedule a free discovery call by going to www.decidetomove.com. For all links mentioned in today's show and to listen to previous episodes, go to www.decidetomovepodcast.com. And remember, we've all been delivered rotten fruit in our past. We can choose to chew on the rotten fruit trying to convince ourselves it's what we want, or we can become the fruits of our labor and create an incredible, fulfilling, and inspiring life and business out of it. You have what it takes to create the life you want.